Hi, everybody. My name is Keith Freeze, and I am certain that this is not the first time that this idea has been pitched around wrestling circles, but I just thought I would pitch it anyway. But either way, back in, I want to say maybe around 2015, 16, something like that, I had been hired, I'll do air quotes, hired by the National Wrestling Alliance. And just as proof, I was mailed this polo T-shirt with a sewn-on NWA patch, and I also received a hat as well. But I guess you're gonna have to believe me because anybody would be like, "Well, you could just go to the store and buy that." But no, I was actually sent this by the previous owner of the NWA, and I was kind of working for the NWA. I'm doing air quotes because I was never paid and my booking ideas were never really got a chance to, be used or talked about or whatever. Um, Transparently, I don't know this for sure, but at the time I had befriended Paul London in real life, and Paul and I were pretty close and good friends. And I think the then owner knew about it, and I think he was trying to get some, named talent to come to the NWA. And I think he was kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever. You work for NWA. But anyway, but that's another story for another day. Um, but I'm saying all of that to say that I have wanted, even still, to try and get a job with NWA, or at least kind of help them out with different booking things. So I will say that for me personally, I don't think that the NWA right now, or even going forward, should be running their own shows. I think that there's too many wrestling promotions going on right now, and there's way too many shows within those individual promotions that the NWA really takes a back seat, and then another back seat, and another back seat. And the truth is that most people, in my opinion, most wrestling fans, I don't think are tuning into NWA. I'm not trying to be rude about it. I'm just telling you how it is, because I am not as much of a wrestling fan as I used to be back in the day. But even still, I don't watch NWA. So the point that I'm getting at is that I think that the NWA will always have value for two reasons. Number one, for its historical value, and number two, for the championship historical value. So because the NWA will always have a name and the championships will always have something that matters, I think that that's how you should sell your product, which is we have a name and we have championships that matter. And I would say that what the NWA should do is stop running shows, stop having events, and stop having an active roster, but instead hold on to, I would say 3 championships, but you could hold on to 4. The 3 championships that I would hold on to are the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, obviously, the NWA Women's World Championship, and the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship. Now, the reason why I would hold on to those 3 is because this is my opinion. This is how I would do something with the company if I was left in charge. But what I would do is, because we live in a world where mixed martial arts is, basically the leading sport within this sort of combat arena, there's no tag team MMA fights. There's no whatever, but there are singles MMA fights. And because of that, that's why I'm choosing to only keep singles championships, because I would essentially walk away from doing from doing tag team championships. I've even done it on my WWE videos, and maybe people are like, "Oh, you just don't like tag team wrestling." It's not that I dislike tag team wrestling. I'm just more thinking about what is the sports entertainment concept for today. If UFC and MMA and even boxing to a certain extent is the measuring stick for sports entertainment when it comes to combat sports, even mat wrestling, there is no tag team, any of that. So I guess that there is team sports like basketball and hockey and football and baseball. I get all that. But I'm saying in terms of the combat sports, it's only one contestant versus another contestant. So that's why I'm choosing to only hold on to singles championships and try to make it a little bit more tight in terms of that, whatever. The second thing I would do is change the name from the National Wrestling Alliance to the National Wrestling Association. It's to my understanding that that was the original name of the NWA, the National Wrestling Association, and then when it turned into the ad hoc multi-promotional thing that we know it to be is when they changed it to the National Wrestling Alliance. And Alliance makes sense because it was all these different promotions choosing to actively decide that there was one champion for all those promotions. So that is an alliance. But prior to that, again, it was the National Wrestling Association. And the reason why I say go back to that is because, number one, there is no more alliance. Well, there wasn't, but I guess they're trying to go back to the promotional thing. I think it's a mistake. But anyway, they had these promotions, and that's why it was an alliance. But prior to that, it was the National Wrestling Association. And if I'm thinking about these sports names, it's like you've got the NBA, which is the National Basketball Association. So if you're the National Wrestling Association, it's a little bit more in that sports entertainment oriented arena, right? Like we're trying to get back to have some realism here, right? So the National Wrestling Association. Okay. Now, in terms of like what the product should be, I think, again, you should get rid of the whole roster that you have. You shouldn't have like a 20-person, 30-person roster, but instead just hold on to those 3 or 4 if you want to keep the tag team championships, but hold on to those 3 titles and then pick 3 champions. And then have those champions go all across the globe and have them work in different promotions like, you know, New Japan or All Japan or whatever. Personally, I think you should try to strike a deal with WWE, and more on that in a second. But basically, you should try to do that and then work in European promotions and WWE and NXT and TNA and have the NWA championship there, not as a prop, but basically like it should only be defended on those other promotions. It's like, this is the champion for the NWA, and today the NWA World Heavyweight Championship is on the line, even though it's TNA, whatever, Victory Road or something. I don't know, whatever. But the point is that you should have the titles mean more by being on a champion that goes and wrestles at all these different promotions. And within that, that's kind of like sort of your alliance thing. So if you don't want to change the name to National Wrestling Association, you want just to be alliance, fine. But I'm just saying that would kind of be your new form of an alliance rather than having your own promotions under the NWA umbrella. And at the same time, because you now only have 3 champions or 4 champions if you keep the tag team titles, but because you only have 3 champions, you get to have the best wrestlers hold your titles. It's not so much about like in our promotion, we have X amount of people to choose from, but instead it could be like we worked out a deal with WWE, which has a deal with TNA, which, you know, we can work with whatever companies are under that umbrella. We can work with European companies that are tied into WWE, et cetera, and you can have that go. So as an example, it's like you could have like Tyler Bate as your NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Tyler Bate is awesome, man. Like, I don't know why people aren't so pushing him to the moon, but Tyler Bate is awesome. And if you had him as the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, that would like certainly have a lot of history that you could put on his name. And because he's like maybe not the top guy in WWE or NXT for that matter, you could have him working in Europe. You could have him traveling a little bit more. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, work out a deal with WWE, and then, because you're not running your own events, you would hold one event throughout the entire year. Now, I know, the whole thing with Billy Corgan is he likes to do the annual show in St. Louis, and that's good. That's great. But we got to now think about just how do we make this a special event? And the WWE owns the rights to the name Starrcade. So you can't run your own show called Starrcade. However, what you could do is a NWA NXT takeover Starrcade, where your NXT champion faces the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. The NXT North American Champion faces the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. The NWA Women's Champion faces the NXT Women's Champion, and the two tag teams face each other as well. So my point is that if you worked out this agreement with the WWE, you have a bigger pool of talent to make your champions. You're not running a show every weekend. You're not running shows for whatever. You're just choosing to have your champions show up at these certain events with your title on their waist. And that allows you to collect B-roll footage. So that way, by the time that you do come to NXT TakeOver Starrcade and you have these people going against each other, it's sort of like, whoa. And also, the NWA champions could appear randomly on NXT programming or TNA programming or European programming, whatever. And that just kind of makes it more publicly known that these people are your champions. So I'm saying, for a lot of cost-effective reasons, get away from having your own roster, get away from running your own shows, hold on to the titles that actually mean something. And the reason why also, too, I would say to get away from the World Tag Team titles and focus on these other three is not only for the singles championship reasons, but because those three singles championships date back to the 1950s and before, whereas the World Tag Team titles didn't start until like the 1980s. So if we're really trying to go back, it's like that's what I would focus on, is the true history of these singles championships. And that tells me that since they didn't have a unified World Tag Team champion back in the 50s, all these promotions had their own tag team championships. It tells me that the original vision of the National Wrestling Alliance was to be a more singles wrestling oriented sport. It wasn't supposed to be tag teams and hardcore wrestling and all this other stuff. It was just supposed to be two people going against each other for a championship title in a wrestling match. So get back to that. Get back to like just simplifying everything. And then from there, make your agreements with WWE, TNA, whatever, and then work your way into that circle. I'm saying to do all of this and to avoid AEW, because I just don't think that AEW is a good investment for this particular thing. Whereas I think that the WWE would have your video library and they would do something good with it. They have the names for your events that you've already run in the past as NWA. Make your kind of alliance with that, and then work with NXT, work with TNA, etc. So anyway, just a couple quick ideas. Billy Corgan, I'm based in Los Angeles. If you would like to, I would love to come work out these ideas with you and possibly come work for the NWA, but whatever. I doubt that you'll reach out, but hey man, crazier things have happened. Either way, thank you for checking out this video. My name is Keith Freeze. I appreciate you tuning in, and check out some pro wrestling.